Now, another reason why people are very often suspicious of the idea that there's an integral connection between Christianity and rights is that they think it may be selfish to talk about rights. And people sometimes today disagree with a lot of talk about rights because they think it's giving people an inordinate sense of entitlement and detracting from the sense of responsibility and duty which they ought to feel. But the main point of the movement for human rights in the modern world has been primarily to stress the rights of those people who are being oppressed and whose rights are being violated. It is not so much a desire to press one's own rights, but to try to protect other people. And sometimes Christianity can get it very wrong. Like Martin Luther, for example, at the time of the peasants' revolt, said to the peasants, "Suffering, suffering, cross, cross, this and nothing else is the Christian law." Now, it might have been perfectly all right for him to say about himself, following the New Testament, all right, I will put up with suffering rather than fighting for my rights. But surely he had no right to say to the suffering peasants that their prime duty was to put up with suffering rather than to react against it. And then, going beyond that, sometimes it is absolutely quite right that we should stand up for our rights rather than simply putting up with injustice. It's not simply being selfish in any narrow term. It might be absolutely right that we should stand up for ourselves. It seems to me that probably one of the reasons that women have been so badly treated down the ages is that they've had inculcated into them the idea that from a Christian point of view, it's better to put up with things rather than to protest against them. And that has very often been very damaging to people's own sense of self-worth and dignity. D.H. Lawrence once wrote a poem parodying a famous hymn which goes, "Stand up, but not for Jesus. It's a little late for that. Stand up for justice and a jolly life. I'll hold your hat. Stand up for justice, ye swindled little blokes. Stand up and do some punching, give 'em a few hard pokes. Stand up for jolly justice, you haven't got much to lose. A job you don't like and a scanty chance for a dreary little booze. Stand up for something different and have a little fun, fighting for something worth fighting for before you're done. Stand up for a new arrangement, for a chance of life all round, for freedom and the fun of living. Burst in and hold the ground." I think that's it's so typical of D.H. Lawrence, who has a wonderful sort of ambivalent relationship with the Christian faith. So it's not simply selfish to emphasize human rights, because primarily we're concerned about the rights of other people who are marginalized, and sometimes it is absolutely right we should stand up for ourselves. Now, what is the basis for rights? What is the philosophical or theological basis for believing in rights at all? The very distinguished American philosopher Ronald Dworkin has written, "Anyone who professes to take rights seriously must accept, at the minimum, the vague but powerful idea of human dignity." Similarly, the distinguished Nobel Prize winner Amartya Sen finds the basis of human rights in, quotes, "the ethical principle that every individual has claims to the attention and regard of others." Now, I believe that what Dworkin and Sen have said there is absolutely right. Human rights, like I would suggest all moral values, depend in the end upon some moral insight, some capacity for discerning the worth of something, in particular in this instance, the worth and dignity of other people who have a claim upon our attention and regard. And it is a question of recognizing that. Now, of course, we put forward reasons for those insights. And it's important that we should do. But what I'd like to suggest is that the reasons we put forward are what I would call indicative reasons. They can never amount to a compelling proof. And I think we see this in relationship to our friendships and the people we love. When I first knew my wife, her father had just given her for her 21st birthday a brand new, beautiful light blue MGA sports car, one of the nicest cars that has ever been made on this planet, I think. And I think a lot of people probably suspected I'd really married her for her car. Certainly she wouldn't have liked that thought. She might have been more pleased if I said I'd married her for her beauty. But even then, she might have come back to me and said, well, in the words of the Beatles song, what happens if I'm wrinkled and grey? Will you still love me then? We can give all sorts of reasons, but in the end, surely we love or like people for themselves, in themselves.